like to request Mr. Shantanu Mukherjee, he's our past president, to please take on the session from here onwards. And Mr. Mukherjee is, apart from being the past president of ICC EIC, he's a CA and CMA, and he's got a very long and good career, and he has been doing a lot of these knowledge-based programs, which are very high level. So, Mr. Mukherjee, please take on from here.
Thank you, Madhusri. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you are.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you. ICC, as if one doesn't know, is the only bilateral chamber between India and US, two great democracies. And it is fitting that at this stage, we are deliberating on a topic which, if I may add, is extremely topical. Pardon the conundrum. Now, this process of discussion obviously would go beyond the export-import value. Probably it will bring in the current situation between US and China's commercial tensions. It will bring in the rising power of India. It will bring in the policies of the changed administration. I don't know. I mean, there are so many flavors to this whole situation, but it is essential that the members and the knowledge outreach that go to the members and outsiders come from ICC, because this is a chamber which is chartered to enhance the trade between India and US. Having said this, I would request our regional president, Mr. Anup Acharya, to commence the proceedings. Mr. Acharya is an entrepreneur himself. He started a company, Why Not India? And I love the word why not. It's spelled Y and not WHY. It's Why Not India. In 2009, he's done extremely important work with leather products and has a considerable and significant export market all around. Mr. Acharya, the virtual floor is yours for your address.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Indeed, you gave a very classic introduction of mine. So, good afternoon to everyone. Geopolitical strategies have always been at the backdrop of social and economic strata of the territories, based upon the needs and requirements of the region right from the ancient period. Need and requirement always leads to the innovation, and from time to time, it keeps changing, eventually resulting in a broad spectrum of development and modernization, further inculcating the change in need to aspirations. And what the world is witnessing today is cause of human aspirations. It's time to check, introspect our aspirations, what we want, and where are we heading. Unprecedented pandemic has shaken mankind and made us realize the ethics of life. World is getting reoriented, and this makes our think tanks and policymakers adapt to the change and reframe the strategies. It leads us somewhere today's topic, trending change of equation in the global economy between oldest and largest democracies. I take the pleasure to welcome our guest of honor, Ms. Eileen Nandi, Minister Counselor for Commercial Affairs, US Embassy, New Delhi. Welcome, Madam. Our guest in today's session, Mr. Stephen Lawrence, Director, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Welcome, sir. I welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. D.K. Srivastava, Chief Policy Advisor, Ernst & Young, and our esteemed panelists. I also welcome all participants joining us today for this important discussion, and I'm sure it shall turn up to churn new thoughts. I would like to thank our National President, Mr. Kapil Kaul, for his proactive nature towards supporting and highlighting this year's theme, energy, ecology, and environment. You are indeed the guiding light for us all. Without taking any further time, I welcome our National President, Mr. Kapil Kaul, to inaugurate the session. Mr. Kaul, platform is yours.
Kapil, just let me butt in here. Thank you for coming in and helping this process. Human aspiration. Mr. Acharya has mentioned one word, human aspirations. Probably it's going to be a buzzword as we go along. Thank you. Mr. Kapil Kaul is the national president of IACC for whatever it's for. I'm sure everyone knows, but one has to go through this form. He's a board member of Rasui Group. He has significant experience in commodity market and automotive market. And more than that, Kapil Kaul has been a backbone of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce over the years. Mr. Kaul, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, SD. Namaskar to everybody. And thank you, Anup, for your kind words. And I also thank you for the excellent support that you are giving from East and turning around East. It's amazing. I'm so really happy. And also I thank all the other members of the panel today here, Mr. Parvez Ahmed, Mr. Singhi, Mr. Kamal Vora, Gandhi, Mr. Jha, Dr. Srivastav, Mr. Amrish Dasgupta, Mr. Stephen Lawrence, and of course, Ms. Eileen Nandi. Thank you. I will start by saying that it's a phrase that I've coined, which goes in line and in tandem with the logo that I've designed, which is here and which is called E3. It's an interlocking logo of 3 items, which is energy, ecology, and environment. So basically conserving these 3. My phrase goes as, in defense of nature, man has to be defended against himself, since man is his greatest enemy. The enemy is not another country, but our own desires are vanity. You'll be surprised how much defense and R&D contributes to our well-being and safety in our day-to-day activities. I go back in time to Indo-US spontaneous collaboration that we have, irrespective of the presidency, irrespective of which party is in power, irrespective of who the prime minister of this country is. So I go back to Y2K. And Y2K in 2000, though K we know was 2000, but I say that K is knowledge. It was the beginning of the knowledge era. And US reached out, and the US technology companies reached out to India and Indian software engineers, and we together solved the Y2K phenomena and entered into the knowledge era. In 2008, during the financial crash, again, the US and other countries reached out to India, and we helped in resolving and getting out of the financial crash of 2008. In 2020, again, the US reached out and we collaborated in the pandemic and finding a solution and finding the vaccines, etc., manufacturing them. Post-pandemic, it's an environmental era. And the environment is the biggest issue that we need to collaborate on. And I must say that 2 things that have always been there between India and USA for time immemorial, and which is a people-to-people contact and our contact in the educational sector and educational enterprises. It's a fact that anybody who wants to do advanced education goes to United States or America as a first choice. And having done so, if you look at all the companies today and technology enterprises, you find Indians peopling and heading most of these enterprises. So education and people-to-people contact is something that has driven our 2 countries together. And now it has enhanced into other areas as well. So I feel that post-pandemic, taking into account the trending change of the equation in the global economy reflecting Indo-US business, America is very well known for hardware, for R&D, for investing in the future, in advanced technologies. And India is known for its software, is known for its spiritual nature, it's known for its holistic thinking. So our two people and our two countries are ideally put to collaborate together in bringing about a reinvention of the global economy based out of India, even though America's on the other side and we are on this side. But given the technologies and the 5G and all that is present, our collaboration can be even much more intense. And they can definitely use the defense technologies, which we all know a lot of the civilian products are coming out of defense technologies and being used for purposes for the common good of humanity. Along with this, I have a proposal and an idea which I wanted to say was, we are neglecting our children, the future, who are inheritors of this earth. And of course, I wouldn't say inheritors in that sense, but we think that we own the earth. We don't own the earth. We are actually tenants of this planet. And our children are the future tenants of this planet. We should involve children in our economy. We should involve our companies to go into the enterprise, into educational institutions and talk about how they are running these companies. So I personally feel that a collaboration between children and children actually, in a sense, auditing companies on how they are environmentally conscious, it may kind of lead us to a different era altogether. Thank you very much. This is what I have to say for today's session.
Kapil, thank you so much. You really set the ball rolling with your very, very pointed comments on environment, the people, the education. I think all these points we have to be on the table as we go along for discussion. And thank you for being so pertinent on this whole issue, on this very, very topical thing. Now we go into the keynote speaker section. I would first like to invite Mrs. Eileen Crow-Nandi, invite and introduce. I mean, I got to introduce her before she comes in, but I don't know why she needs an introduction. All of us know her, but being the form, I need to introduce her. She's currently the US Minister Counselor of US FCS, an MA from the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University. Ms. Nandi is a seasoned diplomat, but more than a seasoned diplomat, she has extensive Indian experience. She has served in India over a long period. She has been, especially in the commercial angle, and that's the reason I can't think of any better person to speak on this. In fact, she has done on matters of policy. She has worked on commercial situations. She has been, of course, a great friend of IACC. And on a personal note, I have interacted with her while she was in Kolkata in 2006 till 2008. And I dare say I've been richer by that interaction. Mrs. Eileen Nandi, the virtual floor is yours. And hello, am I audible?
Yes, thank you. So, yes, am I audible?
Yeah, just one caveat. Okay. If you can hold your deliberation between, say, 12 to 15 minutes or even earlier, that'd be nice.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Mukherjee. And it's a true pleasure to be among so many friends again. And I'm so happy to be here. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Kapil Kaul for your presidency of the National Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. And we look forward to working with you and making sure your tenure is a success. So I'm very, very pleased to be among so many friends. And as you all know, I have a special fond spot for East India. So I'm very happy to see so many East Indian friends. So the US-India relationship is very, very strong, and it had really developed, or I should really say skyrocketed, since I first landed in Kolkata in 2006. We see engagement at the highest levels. What do I mean by that? we've had a number of cabinet officials visit India. And this is, incredibly telling, especially we all know the difficulties of traveling right now, but we've had the Secretary of Defense twice, the Secretary of State, we've had the Deputy Secretary of State, we've had the Special Envoy for Climate Change come twice. Just over 2 weeks ago, we had a very positive trade policy forum with Ambassador Tai meeting with Minister Goyal and had some very positive discussions that yielded wins for both sides. So we're seeing a very, very different and very strategic engagement that is really demonstrates, the trusted partnership that our two countries have. And so I would like to say thank you to each one of you, because it's really the people-to-people ties that form the bedrock of this relationship. And the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce and each one of you through your companies, through your, sending your kids to school in the United States, and many of you have family and friends in the United States, this really constitutes the bedrock of our relationship. Of course, we have something like over 4 million Indian Americans. So your diaspora in the United States is very strong. Many Indian Americans are, of course, in the upper echelons of their fields, whether it's academia, of course, business, military. We see them at the highest levels. So that is wonderful to see. Also, we have very strong education ties. This year, my colleagues in the consular section have processed over 70,000 student visas. That number is probably more, given the fact they haven't updated it, but it's great to see the ties very strong in that area as well. As Kapil mentioned, the US and India have stood side by side over the years. We especially saw that in the pandemic. In 2020, when we needed PPE and other things, India came to our aid. In 2021, when India was in a critical spot, we were very, very proud to see the enormous response from the US business community, including many leaders of the Indian diaspora, providing equipment and needed materials to India. So we have very deep engagement across the wide range of our spectrum. So of course, I'm in charge of the commercial ties in Mission India, but if you look at the health engagement, of course, defense, counterterrorism, scientific collaboration across the field, is such a robust and increasingly complex relationship. So on a personal note, I want to say that's been very, very gratifying to see working on this relationship for so long. It could be better. So, I think given the people-to-people ties that we enjoy, the dynamic nature of our economies, we could be doing so much more. So I look forward to exploring ways that we can increase those ties. When I first came to India in 2006, our bilateral trade was something like $23 billion. In 2019, it was over $145 billion. So that's a great story, very nice trajectory. But again, I think just, given the parameters that I've described, we could be doing so much more. So how do we do that? These are topics of discussion that I look forward to engaging with you on. We have the US-India commercial dialogue that the US Department of Commerce leads with the Ministry of Commerce. And we discuss many ease of doing business factors. We also have the US-India CEO Forum, and the Indian and US CEOs provide recommendations to Minister Goyal and Secretary Raimondo to engage and undertake. And I can tell you that they really do listen and they really do take action. So we look forward to having the revised list of US companies come out soon, and hopefully setting up a meeting with the ministry to move forward on that. So one part of our unsung, one aspect of our relationship that is unsung is Indian companies investing in the United States. So of course, we're all aware of US companies doing well in India. The United States is usually the top foreign investor in India. Sometimes you see data from Mauritius and other countries, but I think it's complicated, but I think in terms of true outside investment, the United States States certainly ranks up at the top. But what is not always talked about is how well Indian companies are doing in the United States. And so over the years, of course, the big companies, and you know their names, have done well. But what I've seen recently is the smaller and medium companies setting up shop and doing well. And so, of course, with the pandemic, we've all noticed, we all talk about supply chains a lot, and how the impact of various supply chain disruptions affects each of us, even on a consumer basis, when we can't get the product we want when we want it. So this is proving the fact that it's important to be close to your customer. And many Indian companies, even in the face of economic uncertainty, are coming to us seeking assistance because they realize they need to be closer to their customers in the United States and North America. So we look forward to working with the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce on our Select USA program. We have a big summit that takes place at the end. It'll be at the end of June, just outside Washington, D.C. So it's meant to be in a hybrid format. So we do hope to take a delegation again this year. The last one we had was in 2019. So we'll just have to see how the public health factors play out in the next few months. But look forward to working with all of you on that. But quickly back to trade. So I mentioned our data in 2019 and over 145 billion. The 2021 numbers look very positive in terms of goods. The services data always comes out a little bit later, but we are on track to exceed where we were in 2019. So that proves the robustness of our relationship, the fact that our companies want to do business with each other, and I think the trajectory is going to be very strong. Of course, we have the geographic element whereby India and the United States are almost on the opposite sides of the globe. So logistically, it can be harder to send goods back and forth, and the shipping cost is there. But I think given the nature of our people-to-people ties, we'll see a strong boom and hopefully meet the ambitious targets that are often bandied about, whether it's 500 billion or even more. I certainly expect one day to be listening to some webinar somewhere in the world and hearing that those numbers have been reached. So we very much value our partnership with you at the IACC. And again, I want to thank you for all that you do for supporting the relationship with the United States, for you doing business with the United States. It's critical for us in a strategic sense to have a partner in this region, in the Indo-Pacific, and seeing India emerge as a leader in this region. And so all of us, we have 7 offices and with the US Department of Commerce across India. So whether it's in the consulates in Kolkata, Hyderabad, Chennai or Mumbai, or our offices in Bangalore or Ahmedabad, we look forward to working with you and helping connect your partners and helping to connect you with US companies. So I hope everybody remains safe, and I wish everybody a very, very happy holiday season and a happy new year, and look forward to hopefully getting back out to Kolkata as soon as I can. And thank you again so much for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Nandi. It was a wonderful sweep of the Indo-US relation as also commerce. Ms. Nandi clearly mentioned a couple of very important things. One is the skyrocketing visits by the dignitaries from both the countries, the education being an issue where India really depends on US. There are 4 million Indian visas have been issued, 70,000 student visas have been issued. But we could do more. You're absolutely right. We could do more. And I think for that, the dialogue needs to go on. One of the amazing thing Mrs. Nandi has mentioned is the success of the SME sector of the Indian companies. It's really a news, and it really gives a lot of hope that this process will continue and will flourish. Let's try at Select US. That's a fabulous program, and I would request all the participants to note this, that Select US gives you a doorway into both sides of the transaction. If you need a technology support, you go there, or you want to set up a company, you go there. So Select US perhaps is a entry point for a lot of commercial transactions from India. Perhaps from the local consulates, you can get the details and work on this. And sure, we look forward to that.
May I just say something here, please?
Sure.
Eileen, from our side, from the ISEC, I think we're going to be pleasantly surprising you on Select USA this year. I would not like to say anything more than that, but we will surprise you this year. I'll keep you posted on this. Thank you.
And of course, we look forward to that 500 billion figure not too far away. And then we're going to raise a toast to Ms. Nandi. All right. So thank you so much, Eileen, for all this. Now, can I invite Mr. Stephen Lawrence? Has he come?
Yeah, I am of course here.
Mr. Lawrence, yeah. So thank you for attending. Let me just take 2 minutes of introducing you. That's a form. He's the Director, Commerce and Industry, Government of India, 2000 batch of Indian Revenue Service with wide exposure in trade matters. Last 3 years, working as director in FT and NAFTA division. Okay, Mr. Lawrence, the floor is yours with a request that you hold your deliberation between 12 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Mukherjee. Thank you. So good afternoon to all. This is in fact my pleasure and my great honor and privilege to be part of this gathering. So my job is already made easy by Ms. Eileen Nandi, who has given details of India-US collaborations and relationship. So I thank Ms. Ipr Laws. I also like to thank ISEC for organizing this event, because this is the event which actually requires quite often, which to make aware of each side, government as well as business, so that we can collaborate and cooperate together and to make a success. So as far as India-US relations are concerned, it is as you must be aware of it. So India is giving very great importance to US relations, which is evidenced by our recent recent developments. We have recently held our India-US Trade Policy Forum, for which has been successful, where we discussed a lot of things at the ministerial level, which has in fact set a momentum for our trade relationship in the days to come. So as far as this today's topic, the change in the equation of global economy, which is a very dynamic topic, which I feel. So India being the 5th or 6th largest economy, having a 2.9 trillion economy. So we are bound to, or we are poised to grow in the next few years, or by this decade end, probably by 2030, we may be reaching at the climbing the ladder to the 3rd position, maybe overtaking other big economies. So not only that, for this to achieve this, we take this $5 trillion aim, which our Prime Minister has set in recently. We require a lot of effort from industry as well as government side, especially the driving exports, which is a very, very important criteria, or which is a very important driver which boosts our economy, in fact, because investment and the exports are very, very crucial. In this regard, government has been taking serious steps, especially doing ease of doing business, which you must be aware, you must have felt that the last 3-4 years, government has rolled out series of investment measures, ease of doing business measures, even creating infrastructure, making the logistics infrastructure easier. So we have in fact climbed our ease of doing business index also in the last 3 years. We have in fact stepped very high in. That is a very big achievement. As far as export is concerned, let me tell you that we have set the target of 400, as our Prime Minister also announced earlier. So we are almost, it is happy to announce that we are almost on track in the last 6 months, 7 months of our export performance. We are happy. In fact, we are thankful to the industry also, because without your participation, it is not possible. These things, because you are the one who is finally taking it forward. So government is there to help each at every wherever possible, and playing a catalyzing role. So in this respect, I thank industry also. So we are another 5 months also, we would be able to exceed the target probably if the same phase we continue. We are hopeful that we will be continuing the same phase of growth also. As far as FTA is concerned, yes, India is receiving a lot of our FTA is from foreign countries are flowing, which is also growing very, very positively. We have last 2 years, the FTA inflow is very high compared to previous years, which is a welcome step. In fact, which is the step which recognizes that India has taken steps and created a conducive environment for doing business. So government is in the continuous process of improving our ease of doing business. And as far as economy, how to climb this, because we have set the 5 trillion target, we have also set the export target of 1 trillion for the merchandise export, and also 1 trillion for goods export by 2028. So which looks very big target, but it is not. It is possible with the support of all the stakeholders, because industries plays a major role. So in this journey, it is not only India cannot achieve everything alone, because we have to collaborate and cooperate with our major trading partners, the like-minded partners. The US being the major trade ally and also natural partner. US and India enjoys the complementary trade relationship. That is a great thing which we may not get in other partner countries. So both are actually we are not competing each other. In fact, in many of the areas, we are complementing, and both sides are helpful. Our industry is in fact sending inputs for the US industry, and it will be used in the upstream. So likewise, we are also importing certain critical items which will be helpful to our industry. So as far as trade is concerned, there is a lot of complementarities which we need to again tap actually to boost our exports, which is the one of the area which we'll try to tap more and more in the coming years. So in this regard, government has also taken a lot of steps for boosting exports. You are already aware of it. Recently, government has rolled out a ROTAP scheme, which is in fact a WTO compliant, which will definitely, we are hopeful that it will be it will helpful for the industry also to create a good competitiveness for their products, so that we would be able to escalate our export prospects also. We have also already rolled out, as per Prime Minister has announced already, Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, whereby we are making India, where we are creating a system of investor-friendly system. So which would also be, I hope, we will add to this boosting our exports. We have also recently government has announced another PLI scheme, which is which is one of the best scheme which we have announced recently, where we have covered almost major 13 critical sectors, including mobiles, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, then consumer goods, steels, textiles, so on and so forth. So we are hopeful that these concrete steps taken by the government will definitely boost our exports and our domestic production and exports in the coming years. So as another strategy which government is also in thinking or doing already in the taken forward is the FTA's negotiation with the partner countries. Government is recently strategized certain FTAs which government is seriously pursuing, so that we would also mutually gain. Our trade partners as also India should have a mutual gain. So any FTAs which would be of a common good, or which gives benefit for both sides, we should look forward also. So government is already in the process of negotiating certain FTAs, so which is also a welcome step. So then coming to the other point, how the recent if COVID has again revealed that supply chain, which is a major area, because we have to have a secure supply chain, which is quite essential for this current scenario. Because having a secure supply chain is essential not only for the security point of view, but also our economic point of view. So in this regard, government has already, with the like-minded partners, there is already this idea has been floated. So in not only India, US, many countries are already talking about it. Industry is also already, I think, industry is also talking about it. Now the issue is how to take it forward. That is because here industry cooperation is also required, because finally the industry has to take it forward from either side. So in this area, in this supply chain, where we look forward to have more specific actions in the coming, especially pharma and other critical sectors, we need to focus on this. Because especially US and India is already involved in Quad and other recent developments. Maybe similar angle, whether we should have a different kind of economic Quad or whatever with the cooperation of the industry, which we should also think it of in the coming days. So that is one area which I would also like to take the view of industry also in this regard. So as far as trade is concerned, yes, India-US trade is compared to, is bouncing back, not only bouncing back, it is growing high and high because the growth rate has been consistently high. Maybe last year it was little less because of COVID, but now it is good. It is exceeding beyond the 2019 figure. So which is a very, very welcome step. We should take it, we should carry forward the momentum. So for that, we require to concentrate on certain areas where how to tap the complementarity of the trade, how to tap this supply chain, how to connect the industries from both sides so that the proper supply chain is put in place. So with respect to recent trade policy forum, which I would like to highlight, where after the gap of almost 4 years, this ministerial forum was held in November. So where both the ministers have discussed and across the canvas of all the trade issues, both sides they are agreed to work together and collaborate on many areas, emerging areas, as well as on the outstanding issues for mutual resolution. We hope that this momentum will be carried forward, and we are both sides are also continuously engaged. We would be discussing on the outstanding issues of either side for mutual resolution in the coming days, in the time-bound manner. So that is a one step, one which you are already aware of it. Anyway, I want to emphasize that one also. So with this remarks, I take this opportunity to thank Indo-American Chamber of Commerce for giving me this opportunity to make remarks. I look forward to work with you and also listen your feedback in the coming session. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Lawrence, thank you so much. You have made very pertinent points, especially it's very heartening to know that the GOI is really committed to high exports. And, when it looks at exports, US is clearly a big elephant in the market. So as you take the export higher and with all these efforts that you're doing, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce can be a huge bridge between the government and because we are the only bilateral chamber of commerce between the two countries. So this is a great opportunity, and I would leave this thought with Mr. Kaul to connect with you even more strongly, because we can bring in things on the table that even the government approach may not be able to do. So kindly remember this. The other thing that I wish to mention, and this is of course a straight thought, that perhaps the so-called weakening of US-China relationship can bring in more export business from India. This is perhaps, I'm just leaving this thought with you. This is probably not the forum, but it can work out this way, because opportunities, when they come, one needs to grab. All right.
SD, may I make a comment?
Please.
Just to take up your point, I must announce out here that for the first time, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce has been invited to be the organizing partner with the Vibrant Gujarat, and we have been given full aid to facilitate in the enhancement of relations between India and the US during the Vibrant Gujarat Summit between 10th, 11th, and 12th. So I hope all present out here can either be present for that. We'll be there in full force. We are showcasing technologies and showcasing enterprises, both Indian and US, which will be addressing these concerns about how industry should reinvent itself in an environmentally friendly way. So I will keep everyone posted on this. And then pursuant to that, as I said, we will be having the Invest USA trip in June, which will be a follow-up on that. And then the culmination will be a global convention in Varanasi, sometime end of August, beginning of September, which is a little ahead, but it'll be a very big convention for Indo-US relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kapil. That's a wonderful news. I mean, I think we need to propagate that. It's a tremendous achievement from your part, and I would like to applaud your leadership in getting this process done.
My pleasure.
Having said that, and you got one of the most, let's say, person, Mrs. Eileen Nandi around, she can really take this forward with the IACC. So this is a tremendous connection, and just go ahead. I mean, we are all behind you.
Indeed, thank you.
Okay, now may I request Dr. D.K. Srivastav to be the next speaker. And of course, I have to introduce Dr. Srivastav. Dr. Srivastav is the Chief Policy Advisor of Ernst & Young India. He's a renowned economist and is an honorary professor at Madras School of Economics and member of the Advisory Council to the 15th Finance Commission. He's come out with a lot of new ideas on economic theories and how it works. And I'm sure his deliberation will add tremendous value to this virtual summit. Dr. D.K. Srivastav, the floor is yours. And as earlier, kindly hold us between 12 to 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Anup Acharya, Mr. Kapil Kaul, Ms. Eileen Nandi, Mr. Stephen Lawrence. I must say that I was a little intrigued by the word equation in the topic that is the topic of discussion today. But eventually when I deliberated on the topic of deliberation today, I thought that the term equation is going to be very appropriate. And the reason is that equation, in mathematics and economics and so on, has components such as a constant and parameters and variables. And if you are an econometrician, then you will also have some random terms, some unknowns in the equation. Now, this is very appropriate in the sense that the context of the post-COVID global economic universe is going to be very different from the way global economy developed and evolved in the pre-COVID era. Apart from the fact that the presence of COVID itself provides a threshold, a tangible threshold. And as we emerge out of it, many things are going to change. There is, as you know, the pre-COVID global economic activities depended on carbon-intensive productive activities, manufacturing activities, which were polluting. And now, as you know, in COP26 and the G20 deliberations, it is now almost agreed by most countries in the global economy that we have to now go for a carbon reducing global technological productive platform and choices, which means that the pre-COVID pursuit of economic growth is going to be very different from the post-COVID economic pursuits in terms of product structure, in terms of choice of technologies, and so on. So that is one clear imperative of the context in which we need to place this discussion. The second is the fact that many countries which are some set of countries which served as the role of a constant in the equation, appearing to be extremely important in terms of global trade and so on, are going to get displaced. And without mentioning any names, let me say that as they get displaced, there would be a new role for a set of other countries. And I think India would appear very in a prominent place in the emerging contours of global trade, in which supply chains would have shifted and the importance of exports vis-a-vis goods and services would also change. And possibly as services become more and more important, India would become more and more dominant player as we go along. The third feature that I would notice, which is where I would say IACC may have a very important role to play, is the fact that in an equation, when you have a left-hand side variable, which let us say is global growth, and on the right-hand side, you have different participants such as the US and the Indian economy, then on the right-hand side, often, apart from the fact that we mention these variables, sometimes there is a product term. That is to say, it is not only the individual contribution of the US or that of the India, but the fact that they come together, their product term in terms of contribution to the evolution of global growth and global trade in the post-COVID universe should be much more than their individual contributions. That is the fallout of the interaction term, as we call it. And this is where bodies like the IAC may have a very significant role to play. So in that sense, the context is such that probably the post-COVID global economic universe would be such that India and the US would play a very important but a very different role from the one that they have been playing so far. And in that context, let me focus briefly on the role that India can play in the immediate term, in the medium term, and in the long term as contours of global economy and global trade emerge. Now, as far as the immediate term is concerned, you know that in the year 21-22, the fiscal year 21-22, India is well on its way to show a growth rate, GDP growth rate of 9.5%. The second quarter growth numbers are already out. And if we look at the first 2 quarters of the current fiscal year, then we find that the signs are that we should be able to achieve this 9.5% growth threshold, which is the projection which is given by both the RBI and the International Monetary Fund. If we succeed in doing so, then it is noticeable that we would have emerged on the positive side of our GDP level, magnitude of GDP at the end of 2018-19, that is the pre-COVID, at the end of 2019-20, that is the pre-COVID normal year. And India and the United States would be the two major countries which would emerge on the positive side at the end of this calendar year for other countries and this fiscal year for India. In contrast, major economies like the UK, France, Germany, Italy, South Africa, Many of these after 21 would still, as per current projections of the IMF, would still emerge on the negative side. So India and the US in the immediate run are already emerging as the leading lights of the countries that are going to play a very key and important role. In that context, India's medium-term role, also indicated by IMF forecast for 5 years, indicates that in the medium term, India is going to emerge as the global growth leader. In the year FY22, I just mentioned a 9.5%, which is one of the highest growth rates amongst major economies currently. And then as we go on FY23 up to FY27, we should be able to show a growth rate of just a little less than 7%. This is so for the IMF forecasts. The OECD forecasts, which are available up to FY24, also confirm the same line of optimism. And there are reasons to believe that we should be able to achieve this because of the fact that the policy contours and the investment in policy, structural policy changes that India had made in the pre-COVID era would now begin to bear fruits. And this would include Atmanirbhar, the emphasis on exports, India's incentives for production-linked investments, and so on, all of those. And then a very wide range of policies covering a vast section of population in sectors like health and education would also, and financial inclusion in schemes such as Jan Dhan Yojana and Mudra, would all begin to bear fruit in the medium term. And as far as economic policy, fiscal and monetary policies are concerned, India has already laid down a very robust framework in terms of a monetary policy framework in which inflation is going to be limited within a reasonable range of 4 to 6% CPI inflation, and the debt and fiscal deficit of the central government as well as the combined governments of state, central and state governments would also be kept under control within prudent and sustainable limits. All of these initiatives have already been taken. There is a case possibly to modify some of the parameters as we go along, but the groundwork has already been laid out. And in that, taking advantage of that, as well as the recent initiatives on building a national infrastructure pipeline and taking advantage of monetization of assets through the national monetization pipeline, India is well on its way to have a major investment boost, both in the public sector and in the private sector, where infrastructure spending would be involved. As a result, as infrastructure expands and the economy expands, India would show the highest growth rates of GDP, and as we go along, also high growth rates of exports. Experience has shown that in years in which exports have been high for India, export growth rates are also the years in which GDP growth rates have been high. And the patch of years around 2005-06 to 2007-08, then again around 2012-13 to 2014-15, were years when export growth rate was very high, and also GDP growth rate was also very high. And therefore, in the post-COVID universe, the economic policies that India should really work out should focus on expanding exports. But when we say exports, it should cover both export of goods as well as services. And this is the right point of transition to also lay out a framework for the long-term potential of Indo-US trade, Indo-US economic cooperation, and so on, in the context of global economy. Now, in the long run, what is going to happen is that the world is going to become more and more service sector centric. If we look at the share of services in the developed countries today, mostly these average out to about 75 to 80%. The share of manufacturing has been shrunk, and the share of in the range of something like 15 to 20%. And the share of agriculture has shrunk over time in developed countries to the range of 1 to 2%. Even in India's case, the share of agriculture has been coming down, although it absorbs a lot of labor and population. But the share of output of agriculture in total output has been coming down. As we look towards the longer term, this trend is bound to continue because the service sector growth rate historically has proved to be the highest, followed by that of manufacturing, and the agricultural growth rate has been much lower in the range of 3 to 4%. As a result, if we project it forward, the conclusion is undeniable that the share of services and the share of manufacturing would together constitute about 95% of GDP, and only 5% would come from agriculture, and therefore domestic policies in India will have to change to cater to this. But as services grow in the world, in India also, we can take advantage of our unfolding demographic dividend. Population projections indicate that after 2028, the share of working age population in India would become the highest, and we would have overtaken that share of China by around 2033. And after this, in the rest of the century, both in terms of the share of working age population and in terms of the absolute number of working age people, India would be able to supply the largest workforce for the world. While the rest of the world would be aging, India would remain young until the mid-60s. And therefore, what policies would be required is to make this large young population productive and healthy. And therefore, we now need to invest in health and education massively, much more than what we have been doing so. If we do so, and this is also consistent with the way dependency ratios are going to change. In fact, the young dependency ratio would keep coming down. The old dependency ratio would keep going up. And therefore, initially, we have to spend on education much more. And as we go along in the rest of the century, we have to spend on health much more. But if we do so and make our population productive, and then train this to cater to the emerging importance of services in the world economy, then we will have the most important role that we can play as we go along. And therefore, as services become more and more important, India becomes more and more important in terms of maintaining consistency with the unfolding opportunities that the global economy is going to show. In that context, this is my final thought. India and the United States can have a lot of collaborative, welfare-oriented, technology improvement-oriented contribution to the world output. And not only the magnitude of the output, but also change the nature of that output. And that nature, we have to accommodate artificial intelligence, robotics, and so on. The technologies are changing so fast. And India is very ideally suited for that, provided bodies like ISCC and various American institutions collaborate with their counterparts in India and develop this synergy that would cater to the growing and changing needs of the world economy. At that note, I would like to conclude and say that best of luck for your deliberations. I think it's a very opportune time and very appropriate theme to deliberate on this subject. And I'm sure that India and US will make very tangible changes to the rest of the world as we go along. So thank you very much.
Dr. Srivastav, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful deliberation from your end. It has been a very thoughtful deliberation, but it has given us a lot of hope also, because you have come out with some very specific points. And frankly, this is what I was missing so far, was the economy has to grow on carbon reducing industries. In fact, the rise of Elon Musk actually states what people are looking at. And this is going to be a huge replacement from the earlier way of looking at growth. You've also mentioned that a new role that India and US can play in the future, with the health and education being a driver for the growth. There's a huge opportunity sitting out there, but actually India is well poised to take that benefit, provided all the stakeholders take part. Dr. Srivastav, it's been wonderful listening to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The next speaker I would request is Mr. Ganesh Chaudhary from Vikram Solar. Mr. Chaudhary, are you there? Mr. Chaudhary?
Yes, I'm here. Hello,
okay,
everybody.
Mr. Ganesh Chaudhary, yeah. What are you going to do? What I'm going to do is I'll give a brief introduction of your kind self, and then I'll leave the floor for you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Mr. Ganesh Chaudhary, of course, has been a visionary. I'm sorry, it was okay. Mr. Ganesh Chaudhary has been a visionary business man. He's created Vikram Solar, a company which has put his foot across the world and is now recognized as next 500 list of Fortune India's role. So, Mr. Chaudhary, if you can kindly deliberate, but I would request, because it's an industrial view now, it's the industrial view. So I would just request you to hold your deliberation within 10 minutes, if that's possible for
Absolutely. I'll probably finish sooner even.
Thank you.
See, I can talk about my industry as much as I can, which will give you a good perspective. And you kicked us off by talking about Elon Musk already. So great. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be a part of this discussion that will strengthen Indo-US relationship and has the potential to transform both our countries through highlighting priorities and solving challenges through cross-country collaboration. The US-India partnership is founded on a shared commitment, interest in promoting global stability, economic growth, and security through cross-country collaboration. India is currently US's 9th largest global trading partner. In 2019, overall US bilateral trade in goods and services reached USD 149 billion US. Trade in services with Indian exports and imports totaled an estimated USD 54.1 billion in 2019. India and the United States cooperate closely in multilateral operations, including United Nations, G20, Association of South Asian Nations, Regional Forum, IMF, World Bank, and WTO. Being the world's leading democracies and market economies, India and US have always seen each other as vital strategic allies. After the initial damage dealt by COVID-19 pandemic and growing geopolitical and supply crisis witnessed in China, it is of extreme urgency for both nations to come together for furthering collaboration on priority sectors, and energy is one of them. The last presidential election resulted in US bringing new ray of hope for renewable energy. Given that renewable energy holds the key to sustainable future, energy rich in nature, the industry requires a lot of support in addition to global acceptance that it already has as of now. The US has already installed 5.7 gigawatts of solar PV capacity in Q2 of 21, reaching a total of 108.7 gigawatts of installed capacity, enough to power 18.9 million American homes. The US has officially surpassed 3 million installations across market segments, and vast majority of which are residential systems. These residential systems are much higher than what we are doing currently in India. With a pro-renewable president like Joe Biden, who has been a part of the Obama administration, presiding over staggering solar electricity growth rate of 5,733% from 2009 to 2016 in the US, and his aggressive plans towards promoting renewable energy to help US achieve economic-wide zero emissions by 2050. We are hopeful of an immense bright future in the US and India both. I feel it's important to highlight that while investing in renewable energy capacity in developing economies, developed economies invested $130 billion in renewables by 2019, while developing countries collectively invested $152 billion. This goes to show that developing countries are betting big on renewable energy, mainly solar, to escape the binds of rising fossil fuel costs and empowering the economy, the job sector, and industrial sector with green adaptation. With interest and investment, the demand for developing countries like US could pick up with more speed and aspiring installations in the solar sector. The world energy demand growing, currently 583.9 exajoules, expected to grow 12% by 2019, from 2019 to 2030. In this scenario, I feel it's of extreme importance that India and US come together to strengthen the solar industry. Under the guidance of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, India has also moved towards solar adoption at an increased rate. India has shown phenomenal growth in the last decade, reaching 47 gigawatt, which is a whopping number considering we were at 10 megawatt in 2010. India's new annual RE capacity addition surpasses coal-based capacity addition. India already at 39% of electricity of its total capacity from non-fossil resources by 2030. We are committed at 40% by 2030, as stated in COP21. The 500 gigawatt renewable energy target by 2030, boosted by PLI scheme from 4,500 crores to 24,000 crores, which is an extension given by the MNRE now. Basic custom duty applicable from 1st April 22, net zero emission target by 2070, which will bring incredible new opportunities in the renewable sector. We have seen exponential growth in the last decade with 35 to 40 gigawatt of capacity additions. As per the Marcom report, in the first half of 21, India added 4.5 gigawatt of solar capacity, growing 251% over the same period last year. Of course, the last year being the COVID year, surpassing installations from 2020. At the recently concluded COP26, India has enhanced its target installation of renewable energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030, out of which 280 gigawatt, over 60%, would be coming from solar energy. Over the next 10 years, around 25 to 30 gigawatt of solar capacity is needed to be installed every year. Unfortunately, India needs to ramp up 3 to 4 times of what it is doing today. We firmly believe pandemic is a huge opportunity for India to shape its inclusive and sustainable economy. India has the resource, technology, leadership, and skill to become the global manufacturing hub for renewable energy. Advanced manufacturing will enable Indian manufacturers not only to be cost competitive, but also enable access to developed markets through technological advancements. Energy availability has been significant to the economic transition, global prosperity, and well-being. Additionally, as India is one of the fastest growing major economies, it is also the fastest growing energy consumer of the world. Therefore, it is easy to make the connection between importance and impact of energy on the economy. The country needs favorable environment to foster advanced manufacturing for renewable energy. As India's largest solar manufacturer with a 2.5 gigawatt of capacity, our continued pursuit is to ramp up manufacturing capacity in India with close ties and belief that through manufacturing, India can only reduce its import dependency and transform its industrial economy socially and employment situations. But for this, we also need support from the policymakers. We need bilateral support between India and US. There is a need for India to be back into the GSP status, and I cannot emphasize enough how not being on the GSP list is affecting exports from India, especially in our category of renewable products. Considering the current geopolitical situation and the support that India gets from US and the anti-China sentiments, it becomes that much more interesting that alternate safe havens are created for supply lines coming out of India. And for this, GSP becomes a very important piece. So overall, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, to realize our vision of an energy Atmanirbharta, in last couple of years, we have introduced smart modules. We've launched high efficiency products, bifacial products, which are hugely in demand globally. In 2016, we established a new capacity in Tamil Nadu for manufacturing, and we are continuously investing and growing in the region. I am certain that India and US can collaborate in building a solar industry that can lead the world into the new dawn. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chaudhary, that was a wonderful deliberation from your end. What an important point you mentioned, the energy, the solar energy, the renewable energy. It's going to be the game changer. And as you mentioned, as you beautifully, explained the whole thing, that India is well poised to go ahead. And what I see is a huge collaboration opportunity with US in this matter, because who's one of the leading consumer as well as one of the leading producer of solar energy. Perhaps President Kapil Kaul needs to take a note of this. Mr. Stephen Lawrence from Government India, take a note of this, and also Mrs. Eileen and the SCS Kapil, come in.
I'm really thrilled to hear what Ganesh has to say. In fact, I've heard of him much before, and it's a pleasure having you on board with us out here. Ganesh, I would request you and I would invite you to partner us in Vibrant Gujarat, partner us for Invest USA, and of course in the global convention in Varanasi. And we will definitely make it worth everybody's while. So we'll be in touch with you and we'll bring you on board on this. Thank you, Ganesh, very much. It's fantastic.
Thank you, sir. Would be happy to.
Thank you, Kapil. Now, next speaker from the industry, I'd like to invite Mr. Samar Jha. Mr. Jha, are you there? Mr. Jha, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Mr. Jha, I will invite you with the next speaker, but I'd like to introduce a bit. Mr. Jha is the chairman of WEBEL. WEBEL is West Bengal Electricity. I mean, it runs electricals. It runs the software, hardware status from the government GOI side, a national talent scholar. Mr. Jha has a long career in the railways, retiring as financial commissioner and member of railway board. He is an experienced campaigner, renowned industrialist, and we would request Mr. Jha to take the floor and kindly hold your deliberations within 12 to 15 minutes. Mr. Jha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Ladies and gentlemen, and all participants of this wonderful webinar, I have been listening with rapt attention at the deliberations, and it is my responsibility to get all of you on the same page as far as IT, ITES, and electronics is concerned. For those of you who are not aware of what Webel does, Webel is an organization which started in 1974 to promote electronics in the state of West Bengal. But over a period of time, electronics went in the background with the advent of computers and IT. And our main objective now is to promote IT, ITES industries in the state. And electronics, of course, is not forgotten. We are also promoting electronics. Now, in our effort to promote these industries, we have met with certain obstacles. Of course, the latest is the pandemic. The pandemic put a slight deceleration to our progress. I can very well tell you, one of the things that we do is we have developed infrastructure all over the state in the form of IT parks. We have 18 IT parks in the districts and 6 large ones in the Calcutta area. Now, just to give you a result, how the pandemic has impacted us, in February 20, just the start of the pandemic, our Kolkata properties was occupied to the extent of 96%. And we were directly employing 4,040 people in these institutes. Incidentally, most of our clients are in the SME and MSME sectors. So they are small business people, not very large, but they significantly add to the job scenario. The districts had slowly gone up from about 60% occupancy 4 years ago to 80% when the pandemic broke. And we had 288 companies in these IT parks. We have 18 IT parks in the districts. And 288 companies which were directly employing 4,029 people. Now just see what has happened. In September 21, after the 2 waves of pandemic, our occupancy in Kolkata has come down from 96% to 82%. And in the districts, it has come down from 80% to 70%. So there was a significant drop in the occupancy. And sadly, a number of companies have folded up because of the impact of the pandemic, which is very sad. But what we are trying to do is trying to get them back on their feet by reducing the payments that they make to us, by postponing the payments so that the cash flows improve. And hopefully some of them will be able to come back and start their business all over again. Well, pandemic was an impact, was an obstacle of a very sudden nature. But what we suffer in West Bengal is something which is a little of longer duration, and that is a negative image. Wherever I have gone trying to sell Bengal, I have received some kind of a negative feedback about the viability of businesses in the state. Now, all I can tell them is don't go by history. Look around you, and you will see that most of the major IT, ITES companies of the country and abroad have a very significant presence in Bengal. I mean, you can mention any company offhand, starting from Infosys, TCS, Accenture, Capgemini, Cognizant. They're all there. How is it that they are there, despite the negative image? It is something which has become a kind of a big obstacle for us. whenever we go and meet industrialists or people with means, they say, sab kuch theek hai, but what about the environment? Now, what can I say except that the industrial scenario in the state has been as good as in the 50s and 60s now. There aren't that kind of industrial problems which we used to face in the 70s and 80s and 90s. But the negative perception remains. Among the IT companies, we do miss two iconic US companies who have yet to make their presence felt in the state. They are Intel and Microsoft. I have spoken to their country heads here, but they don't have any immediate plans. Perhaps, maybe in the future, we'll be able to persuade them to try this state. See, this state has a number of advantages, which I do not tire of telling people. First and most important for our industry, IT and ITES, is the people, the availability of skilled manpower. Hundreds and thousands of girls and boys from this state are working all over the country, but they don't have opportunity in their home state. And if you are a businessman, you will realize that employing a person in his home state and in a state like Bengal, where the costs are much lower, it works out much cheaper for the companies. Otherwise, why should TCS have more than 40,000 people working in Calcutta? And if I start giving the numbers, you'll be very impressed with the number of people working here in the IT industry. Incidentally, we are exporting from this state more than 30,000 crores worth of IT products. It should be much more. It should be double of that. But we are doing that much already. Besides the trained manpower and the human skills that are available, we have other advantages. One is power. There is ample power and good quality of power availability. Then we have excellent transportation connectivity in terms of airports, ports, railways. That is there. And very importantly, Calcutta is the gateway to the east and northeast of India. And if I may say so, the IT companies are also realizing that it is also a gateway to Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia market can be very well serviced from this state. You all know that Jio is setting up a data center in Salt Lake's Silicon Valley. They have bought 40 acres of land there, and they are setting up a massive data center. The idea is not to do business only in Calcutta. The idea is to do business in the entire hinterland. So there is opportunity. And I dare say that I hope a time comes when people realize that there are so much of business available here, so much of opportunities here. Webel and the West Bengal government and ISCC have been in touch with each other for a long time. In fact, a delegation from the state went to the USA for looking for opportunities. But unfortunately, because of various factors, there was no follow-up to that. Otherwise, several companies had shown great interest in coming to Bengal. So I am hoping that ISCC will now help Webel to contact possible investors from the United States and bring them here. Bengal has a very old history of relationships with the United States, and I'm sure that can be renewed. I would like the USA to come to this state which has produced Tagore, Nobel laureate. C.V. Raman did his work here. Mother Teresa, Ronald Ross, who discovered the reason for malaria, and the economists Amartya Sen and Abhijit Banerjee. So this state has produced so many Nobel laureates, more than any other place in the country. I'm sure this intellectual capital, which still exists, will be attractive enough, will draw American companies to this state. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Mr. Mukherjee, we are not able to hear you. I think you have to unmute
Mr.
yourself.
Mukherjee, you're muted. SD, you're muted.
Mr. Jha, can I repeat? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Jha, it was wonderful to hear from you, bringing in the benefits of doing business in Bengal. Now, Microsoft and Intel, I would request that this be a joint initiative with IACC, because we have our legs in US also. So Kapil, I'm just wondering if this can be an agenda in your table and try and work this out. But not only Intel and Microsoft, perhaps we can use the picture that Mr. Jha has laid out to bring in more IT and ITS companies. The advantages are very clear. So perhaps we have to get over the negative perception. And Mr. Jha, I'm telling you, ISCC can play a leading role in this. Kindly be in close touch with ISCC, and I'm sure it'll deliver results.
Sure, Mr. Mukherjee. Thank you.
The other point that I wish to ask Mr. Jha is Northeast India and Southeast Asia. These areas can be serviced from here. Can you lay out a plan on this and perhaps discuss with IACC? We can send out a feelers also.
Okay, certainly we can certainly do that. We can do it very soon. And maybe
come in here, SD, I'd like to come in here.
Yeah, Kapil, please come in.
It's interesting, Mr. Jha, what you say. Actually, before I became regional president in 2004, the reason why your what's his name, Mr. Azim Premji set foot into Calcutta was that they did a survey in the company in California as to what is the HR composition, and they found that around about 60% of them were from Bengal, and about something like 70 or 80% of them were from Calcutta. And when they were asked as to, would you like to be employed in Calcutta itself if we give you the opportunity? And I think most of them could raise their hands and said yes. And that's why actually saying your Azim Premji set up the first unit out there. And subsequently, when I was president from Indo-American Chamber, we facilitated along with Mr. Buldev Bhattacharya, when he was then the chief minister, for IBM and else Cognizant to actually improve their presence in Calcutta itself. So definitely from ISCC, we can help you to connect with Intel and with Microsoft. And there is no arguing on the logic that you have mentioned today in your deliberation.
There's a plethora of companies in the USA, medium-sized.
Yeah, so I think one of the things which we like to work on, I think, or rather 2-3 things, is that what I also took up at that time, but we couldn't facilitate it further, is the setting up of an American school in Calcutta, along with other entertainment and tourism facilities, because anyone, you see, if people can go to the United States, and definitely people from the United States can also come and work here. If they can work in Chennai or they can work in Hyderabad or Bangalore, then why can't they come to Calcutta? But education and bringing family is an issue which is a factor in Calcutta. So maybe we need to work on seeing how we can set up an American international school in Calcutta, being one of the things. But
that will be wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be wonderful. In fact, there is some deliberation now to try and make Kalyani an academic hub, because Kalyani already has, and the infrastructure, that is the connectivity to Kalyani and Haringkhata and all that, is going to improve tremendously. Already the expressway is almost complete. The connectivity to the expressway is left. Once that happens, you will reach Kalyani in less than an hour from Chaurangi. And Kalyani can be a wonderful hub. Only the IEEE is coming up there. And there is already the Kalyani University and others. So I think we can certainly set up an American school, not necessarily in Kalyani, it can be in Calcutta, but it's a very good point. Thank you.
If you can give us a paper, a white paper on this, we can definitely float it and take it forward.
Yeah, Mr. Jha, if you can just lay down the white paper, that could be a very good starting point.
Mr. Acharya, I think Anup wants to say something.
Yeah, I just want to add what our National President said, that I think East India, West Bengal or Eastern India needs a kind of marketing. I think that if we can market this Eastern region zone through our Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, I think it will help, because the branding of the Eastern region of Bengal, what has been done, it is hampering somewhere. So in order to change the perception, we actually need to convey the development which is taking place over here. So this is the right time. I think we can market this region. This is very essential in my point of view.
I think it might be nice, Mr. Kaul, if ISCC and WEBL, they jointly make out a strategy for marketing Bengal. In fact, we can bring in WBIDC also, because they are also in the same business of getting investment. And see, from our side, we have made some 1 or 2 very short but very nice videos or films on the advantages of Calcutta and Bengal as an investment decision. They are nice, professionally produced. We are trying to show those film clips in seminars and conferences to sort of get people to know.
Would be great. Yeah.
But then there are other ways of marketing. And
sure.
Mr. Acharya.
I think Mr. Kalra wants to say something.
Mr. Jha, when you say that WEBL has started shifting from electricals to IT and ITES, and the major, if you have done the little bit of SWOT analysis of the state, you find little difficulty. I have also seen that a lot of IT students who have graduated, they go and work in states like Andhra, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, or even they go to Singapore if they get better opportunities. The thing is that we should have some incubators for the startups so that our talent remains within the state. If as an IT company, as a parent IT company in West Bengal, you can have some incubation centers and incubators for the IT startups and the young people, the investment for those startups will certainly pour in and they will be attractive. And this will add to the ease of doing business in the state of West Bengal. That is the main thing which is hampering even the other companies to enter into it. Once we support at WEBL incubation centers, say around a dozen startups, there will be a lot of magnetism force which will be attracted, and then even the ease of doing business in West Bengal will improve.
Mr. Kalra,
thank you,
so
Mr.
much.
Kalra. Can I just respond to him, please?
Yeah.
Mr. Kala, thank you for bringing up this issue. We can have that in the Q&A section later.
Yeah,
but I just want to say that NASSCOM and WEBL have jointly got a startup incubation center in Sector 5, functioning for the last 5 years. And some of the startups there have done pretty well. But we haven't created a startup environment in this state. I'm on it because we don't have an announced startup policy yet. We have to do that. But I'm aware, only just a few days ago, we have discussed this very deeply. And I'm hoping that this will come. Thank you very much for your suggestion.
Mr. Jha, thank you. I can see.
I want to put in a few words if I'm allowed to do so.
Okay, but keep it short then.
Yeah, I think it's important because I have worked with WEBL for a very long time. And Mr. Jha, you may not be knowing me, but I had worked during the time of Mr. S.K. Mitra and all the others who came in at that point of time. And I really believe that WEBL can play a pivotal role with the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce in taking the business forwards, because if WEBL front ends any project, I'd like to share with all, I think Mr. Jha will support me. If WEBL front ends any project can be obtained from the government of West Bengal in a single tendering, which is very important. Myself as the director and CEO, today only we had a meeting with the WEBL officials, and it has been decided that for training and stuff is concerned, we'll go like that. And American companies coming. I used to work for a US company, and we got the entire order for police computation through WEBL. So I think that this is a very important point, and WEBL can be a very important partner for Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. I'll take the help of Kapilji in this, and also Anupji, who is so proactive all the time, so that we can handhold and go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Biswas, thank you for your comments. And I see a lot of positive energy coming out of this webinar. And but time is short, so we go on to your next speaker is Mr. Milesh Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi is the Vice President, Marketing and Sales at Ramakrishna Forging Limited. Rich experience in the company over 2 decades, and has contributed to company's considerable growth and recognition in domestic and export market. Mr. Gandhi, the virtual floor is yours, with again a caveat to hold it within 12 minutes or maximum 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Firstly, I would like to thank all at IACC for giving us this opportunity to be here. And I have been hearing since last 1.5 hours all the eminent speakers. And I am very happy that a lot of learning comes upon, and a lot of future insight also is getting brought in. Though I think the way the talks have been going, and I feel that yes, East seems to always be a priority, and we all have a passion, as we all are sitting mostly in the eastern part, apart from IICC, certain members there in the national capital area. But at the same time, I think Mr. Samar, you would also, and those who have been speaking about the East, you all will be happy to know that our company, Ramakrishna Forgings, we are the biggest in the eastern part of the country in our field, and we are the second biggest in India in the field of forgings. We have a turnover of nearing $300 million US, and out of which like 50% of the same goes to the export market. And against our 50% sales, US is considerably high, and nearly around 55% of the sales of our exports goes to the North America. We have a strong presence in North America too. We have 2 offices in US and Mexico, and we have a plenty of more than 7 warehouses from where we operate to all customers. And as I'm speaking from the industry, so we cater the class 8 market there. So class 8 is basically segmented there for the trucks and buses, which are mainly in US. And you would be very proud to know that from India, working with the OEMs and tier 1s there, we enjoy a patronage of nearly 60% market share in the North America region, and including US. We have been growing at the same time in the forging industry. We have been trying to cater to the CV market. We have entered the light vehicle segment there because in US you have all these big SUVs and they have these pickup trucks. So there is a big market there. And at the same time, we are working for a lot of engineering sectors. We also work for a lot of oil and gas industries there. One thing from an industry perspective, I would like to see, we all, I think, know the data very well, that India exports nearly, I think Mr. Ganesh told that more than $52 billion worth of exports go from here and imports around $29 billion. But obvious, we all know very well that the FTA is a big question, and on account of the last Trump government, rather than things turn out to be not much in favor for industry like us, wherein the GSP was removed. For the steel industry, like we had a 15% type of a duty from people in our fraternity there, and for even like for aluminum, like up to 25% duty was levied. And you can see from the last year's figures, after the section 232 has been implemented, nearly 46% growth has been downwards. So I'm very sure there were members from the American side too, and considerations are there. And what I can really feel with the last and the recent visit of the US tariff representative, Ms. Catherine, and with this, I think things seem to be much better and the dialogue seem to be improving. And the industry really looks forward to a good GSP, because see, today we have a representative like Mr. Lawrence also from the government. I think PLI scheme is a good initiative, but it is more focused towards new investments and even towards certain of the like the EV and the other industries more prominently. And we would also like to have those bandwidth much focus into the existing industries also. So I'm very sure some considerations would be made. But when I speak about my industry, and the topic today is the trending change, I think the trending change is because of this COVID era. And today, India has an upper advantage. US, not only US, but the entire world seems to be annoyed with China. And that sweet spot is there, wherein India can take the advantage. We as a company have seen tremendous numbers of opportunities coming from US, and wherein a lot of sourcing decisions, which used to go to the best cost countries, have moved from China to India, and we are trying to take the advantage. But our initiative of taking advantage is something else. We in India lack that infrastructure, and that gives the competitive edge to China. And we all have to agree to what is the current scenario today, because China has built this in last 2 decades, and we India are still in the process of building it. Yes, things are coming better, but still a lot to do. In this session, I would like to state and give the speakers and those who are participating here. See, I would like to categorize my industry basically into 3 areas here. What is currently the demand, what is the current situation, and what can be the future. Let me tell you, we are finding very robust demand in the US market. And as we all know, US already spent nearly $4 trillion in these COVID times. And currently the Biden government is also planning to make further spending with the Congress and the White House, another $2 trillion in next 10 years. I'm sure that is going to push up the demand a lot. And this is really going to help with the Biden new thought is better, build better. Okay, so this is really going to help us. The demand is going forward. At the same time, when I was there in US in May, and I could make out that the spending power has gone high, in the sense that the household net worth income is better and people are spending. So some savings are coming out there. But we have a lot of advantages because of the environmental change and so many things. A lot of lightweighting options are coming in, and we as a forging industry, we are basically the backbone of any moving object, have a lot of opportunities to do there. But at the same time, we have faced a lot of problems recently too. This is mainly with regard to the supply chain impact on account of containers. And I think we all have faced this problem with the prices going like 3 times up. And today, the US automobile industry is rather facing a bigger crisis with regard to the semiconductor shortage, though they say that things are going to be normal by February onwards. But still, we find the improvements are there, but not up to the level what we were looking forward to. But with this is the condition today with the semiconductor, when the industry is still on an ICE mode. Tomorrow, when electrification comes in, the semiconductor requirement would be at least 4x. So this is really going to help us in some way or the other. But one good advantage, what we are finding today from India perspective is, though we are paying higher for the freight costs, but what has happened is the inflation cost in US has really gone up and the labor wages have really gone up. So right today, laborers are having the opportunity of going for new jobs, and at least 4 to 5% labor wage rate has gone up. So that is helping us offset the cost and avoiding the fear of us that best cost countries will lose the advantage for moving forward, or the gains what the best cost countries, when these people come to India for sourcing, these activities will go away. Lastly, with the future, I would like to say things look quite bright from our industry perspective. With increased vaccinations, things are really helping. We are a part of the auto component industry, and we all know that this has been the highest sales. The first quarter sales has been the highest as compared to 2014. But at the same time, I heard about this select US, and now with the way US is also asking, because of the supply chain, they are also asking many companies to come and put up some form of manufacturing there. We ourselves are looking forward to our presence by 2024. I'm sure I will take the help of IACC and also the consulate there, and we look forward to the best of the interest and take this forward. Thank you very much for inviting us, and I look forward to a nice session further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi. That was a very, let's say, hopeful presentation from your end. 60% of the market, that's fantastic. I mean, not many people would know that Indian company is holding a 60% of the market share in the Class 8 segment. You mentioned about China opportunity. I totally agree with you. We need to grab it by the neck and bring the industries here. However, you made a very, very important point. We need to develop our infrastructure very, very fast. And I hope Mr. Stephen Lawrence is noting it down, because otherwise all the benefits that are likely to come may turn to naught. Yes, current president's Build Better bill is going to increase demand in US, and I'm sure there'll be more supplies. And another very important point you mentioned was the semiconductor. I mean, something we need to work on this and, generate a huge amount of value and also connect with US on this matter, because a lot of customers are sitting in US on this basis. So you made some excellent points, and thank you, Mr. Gandhi, for doing so, because we've got a spectrum of listeners from all across who are taking note. Thank you so much.
SD, may I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Gandhi, it was very, very enthusing to hear what you are saying and what you're talking about. And I'm very happy to hear what you're doing in Ramakrishna Forgings. I had definitely heard of your Bharat, what's his name? Anyway, so what I want to say here is that we would like to help you reinvent yourself. Since you're into CV and forgings is very much in ICE engines, but you're coming across as a very proactive person. And we'd like to partner you to take you forward for the next 10 years, or bring 10 years into the future right now into your presence, and connect you with both 3D technology as well as American businesses, where you can reinvent your businesses for EV, not just EV, but even drone mobility. So that's the future. And definitely we are here to support you. Please do come along with us for Select USA and to participate. And we will help you to reinvent yourself, especially when I was talking about the E3 principle, which we can talk about later as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gandhi.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. And It's always a pleasure, and we'll surely try to work together in a
Sure.
much better.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi.
Thank you.
Now, this segment is from the reaction from the industry. So we have got a service industry to react now. Mr. S.K. Singhi. Mr. S.K. Singhi of Singhi Associates, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Singhi, thank you for joining us. A little bit of introduction for everyone. Mr. Singhi is a lawyer, is a legal luminary who has a company secretary also under his belt. From the top legal position in a corporate company, he resigned and commenced his own independent firm, which has journeyed to a large firm, not only in India and abroad. Mr. Singhi is really in a position to give us a view on the legal perspective on this whole trade. Mr. Singhi, the floor is yours, and kindly hold the discussion between 12 to 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. I certainly cannot take the liberty of extending my time because of being the last speaker. So certainly, I would.
So you got a speaker. You got speakers coming after this. Anyway, yeah, please.
So I'll keep it. I'll only touch upon the issues of the concern which requires the legal and the regulatory attention, both the industry as well as the government level. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really an honor and pleasure to be a part of IACC, as also to be a part of this August gathering. I have been hearing for the last 2 hours, and there is a great excitement which I find to do a lot more business between the two countries. The authorities of the countries from the government side, Indian government side present here, and also from the US side have all spoken very positively. But there are certain issues of concern which also needs attention. The issues are of general concern. The issues are concerning the limitations which hampers the growth of the industry between the two countries. Some of the issues which I find in the course of my interaction with various businessmen, with various trade representatives who come to us and discuss their problem, I'll just summarize a few of them. The one of the general concern about this comes about this one is relating to taxation. There is a double taxation treaty between US and India, but still the treaty does not solve all the problems. The major issue that arises is because of the categorization of a business as a residency status. Though there is several instances where one particular company is categorized as a resident in both the countries, which ultimately leads to the double taxation. The treaty also does not fully cover the issues of the capital gains. As you all aware, being in business, the countries, the sovereign states have their own right to levy capital gains or taxes in various forms on various citizens, and company being a citizen, such taxes are also imposed. Now, in accordance with the provisions of our own domestic law, the taxations are imposed. The DTTA provides for resolving this conflict, but India, US DTTA opts for a domestic law policy and the taxability. The tax income under the capital gains in India is calculated on income generated by Indian residents worldwide, including income on disposal of a foreign asset. Whereas similarly, all US citizens and aliens are taxed on their worldwide income in form of capital assets, but non-residents are not taxed in US for disposal of US resources and their assets. Therefore, US citizen disposing of an Indian asset is taxed both in India and US, which is really a concern for the US business and people to come to India. The next issue of concern that comes to us that's relating to Ipr laws. Now, anybody coming to or doing any business is more cautious about their intellectual property rights and laws. The US IP laws are territorial, and Indian protection does not carry on in US. The US has a federal registration system, and the rights on unregistered marks can be sought under state and federal laws by usage and by using them. The intellectual property rights in India have also been a chief concern of US businesses since last 35 years. Though there have been changes in the Indian law, the patent law has been changed, but still the issue of concern remains with regard to implementation, with regards to practicability. There are issues which have been sounded with regard to the immigration law. As we all know that the immigration policy of the US allows very limited applications for applicants to be processed every year. The highly skilled workers, as far as an estimate is concerned, are processed annually of 65,000, whereas additionally there are some who are having advanced degree in US are processed up to 20,000. Whereas there is a need for relaxation in the immigration policy so that there is an increased flow of manpower into the countries, each of the country. And the other major issue, which of course the government of India has also sounded at WTO, is relating to the high fees being charged by the US authority on Indian companies under various categories. If you are having your more than 50 employees, then the fees is higher, and so on and so forth. So these are the major concerns from the perspective of Indo-US business. The expansion, the growth gets a halt, and this needs to be resolved and taken up at both the authorities. As far as the challenges while doing the business from the Indian perspectives are concerned, and the perspective of doing business in India from the US things are concerned, there are issues that realize the US concerns is more, as we understand, there are environmental challenges, there are challenges relating to dispute resolutions. Our country has got a lot more pressure because of the rapid development, and the ecology and the finite resources of India have gone massive changes. So the regulatory approvals with regard to the environmental law at state and center level are required, which of course takes a lot more time than what it should have been taken, and this is a major concern for the US businesses to come to India. The dispute resolution mechanism, though we are heading towards the pre-litigation disputes, out-of-court disputes, but through negotiation, but the arbitration, which is an internationally recognized form of dispute resolution, still remains a major concern in the US company. The 1940 of Arbitration Act did not command much respect in the international arena. The law in India changed substantially. We had a new arbitration law in 1996, but still the issue of enforceability and the judicial intervention still continues, and which are the major form. That is why still our country has not become a major favorite hub for international arbitration, be it US companies or be it any other company. There are other issues which relating to ease of doing business. We are well behind the expectation of the investors in doing ease of doing business, and that needs to be improved a lot. The single window clearance system started by Government of India in various industry sectors still needs to have a robust implementing system. Nothing is not, though it sounds very good, but in actually the system doesn't work to the expectation of the investors. The important and major issue that in the current scenario comes up, that is with regard to cyber law and data protection policies, and which gives rise to the trust factors and unethical activities. As we all know, there are issues and concerns with regard to the cyber law as far as the trust factors and the data protection laws in India are concerned. In spite of various changes and revolutionary steps taken by government, still we are to win the confidence of the investors in us. As recently as a couple of months back, one of the companies pleaded guilty to manufacture and distribute adulterated drugs and paid huge amount of sums as compensation to the US FDA, Justice Department. There are issues where the India became a focus of FDA, and regulators have uncovered a steady stream of suspicious behavior at numerous companies, from computer files found deleted from the employee's desk, and so on and so forth. These issues need to be tackled, as any business coming to India, whether it is US companies or any other company, would first be interested in securing their data protection and will be looking into privacy aspects, which needs a greater impact. The other important issue that needs to be recognized and that needs to be resolved immediately relating to labor laws. There are various labor laws in the country. The government of India had in 2020 encompassed 4 labor codes by subsuming more than 29 labor laws into 4 labor laws. But still, the rules are yet to be framed. The law is yet to be implemented. And that's the time, it is the great time that it should be done immediately so that we extract more human resources and get more foreign investors, including the US investors. The country's recognized regulatory authority needs to be at par with the international authority, and the recognition at international level should be immediately brought in. Besides that, there has to be government and judicial intervention which needs to be minimized and regulated for the businesses to continue unhindered without any outside or external forces or intervention. These are few of the concerns which we have come across as a legal practitioner. And as far as our industry is concerned, we still expect both the countries, the governments at both levels, to open up the industry, legal industry, for the legal practitioners of each country to practice in the other territories. These are some of the things which are there. I leave it now for the floor to consider. This can be deliberated at a later length. There are minute details, there are minute legal problems within these areas. If anybody have any more concerns, I will be happy to address the same, either through the chamber or personally, as and when anything is required. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Singhi. You have made some very, very valid points in your presentation, and I'm surprised that capital gains thing has not been revised so far. Okay, so I'll now we are running out of time, so I would get into the interactive session immediately, and I would request Mr. Parvez Ahmed of Labaik International to react to the deliberation that has happened so far. And if we can hold the reaction in next just 5 minutes, please, because we're really running out of time. Mr. Parvez Ahmed, floor is yours. Hello, Mr. Ahmed. Yeah, that's right.
Good afternoon. All my regards to you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mukherjee, for inviting us. Good afternoon to Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Kapil Kaul, our president, and Mr. Anupacharya, our regional president, and all our friends of different business communities, members of ISCC. We are in leather manufacturing, tanneries, and export-import business since 1977. We are one of the oldest tanners of Eastern India and doing business since past 5 decades. Our government has also recognized Star Export House status and is awarded with many certifications. We would like to thank again to ISCC for this webinar on trending change on equation in the global economy, reflecting on the Indo-US business. Sir, I would like to highlight something about the leather industry. In India accounts for around 13% of the world's leather production of hides and skin, and handles a robust annual production of about 3 billion square feet. The country accounts for 9% of the world's footwear production. This industry is known for its consistency in high export earning, and it's among the top 10 foreign exchange earners for the country. India has an abundance of raw materials with across 20% of the world's cattle and buffalo, and 11% of world's goat and sheep population. The leather industry is an employment-intensive industry, providing job to more than 4 million people, mostly from the weaker section of the society. Women employment is predominant in leather products industry and about 30% share. The leather industry in India has one of the youngest workforces, with 55% of the workforce below 35 years of age. You will be very happy to know that this in leather and leather products having a share of around 18% in US, and in other countries. In Germany, we are having around 12%, in UK 10%, in Italy 6%, in France around 6%, in Spain it is 5%, in Netherlands it is 3.5%, UAE 3%, China, Hong Kong 2%, Belgium, and so on. In short, we call India as the second largest producer of footwear and leather garments in the world, and the second largest exporter of leather garments in the world. And we are the 5th largest exporter of leather goods and accessories in the world. So, as our regional president says, we need the marketing Bengal. We can say India has a lots of potential to grow much larger in each and every space of business in the coming year. For many wallets, handbags, and gloves, retail in high street stores of fashions labels like Coach, Debenhams, House of Fraser's, Mark and Spencer, and Gucci are manufactured in Kolkata. Even leather products sold in American chain Walmart are sourced from here, sir. We believe that ISCC is serving a vital link between the government and the member of any industries in India. We know India's present situation and its aspiration for the future. And we, ISCC, can play a very important role in promoting economic growth between the two countries. That's all I can say, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. It was very nice presentation of yours. But now I'm not going to round it up. For the paucity of time, I'll request Mr. Kalra to come in. Mr. Kalra is a chartered accountant, and I was feeling very lonely all this time because I'm also a chartered accountant. But now that Mr. Kalra is coming in, I'm feeling a bit happy about it. Mr. Kalra is a chartered accountant with extensive experience in various fields, but because of paucity of time, can you hold your presentation in 5 minutes? Your interaction, more the presentation, the interaction 5 minutes. Mr. Kalra, the floor is yours.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Thank you, Mr. Kaul. Thank you, our regional president, Mr. Acharya, for inviting me for this very important webinar, where there has been August gathering of learned speakers from the embassy, from the ministry, and all those things. And I would like to retaliate to whatever has been said, which I have notes I've been making, and I had discussed with Mr. Mukherjee in the morning. What our national president was telling about the Indo-US relationship starting from the 2008 or Y2K issues and those things. I remember when I was a child, there was after the China war in 1962, there was a lot of food shortage, and America helped us with PL 480 loan, wherein food grains and milk was donated to India. And I still remember in my school days that I used to drink milk in the school. Those are the old days when US and India relationship grew very strong. And Nehru and Kennedy had very good relationship those days. What Alan was telling about the visit of the Commerce Minister Tasi, the bigger companies and other things, and it is a good sign that SMEs have also started investing into the US. I would request that same thing when she said that that is a market where the factory also should be set up near the market. Same is that India is also a very big market. We would request the American companies or the SMEs to come and invest in India and set up joint ventures with our members in ISCC. They are also, most of them are SMEs, and we are looking forward for the American companies to invest in West Bengal in the SME sector. And what Mr. Stephen was telling about the FTAs and other things, what we have seen is that USA has come out of the TPP and India has come out of the our RCEP. So both of us are almost sailing in the same boat. What is happening is that as a result of this, China is dominating in both the regions, where USA has come out of the TPP and India has come out of the RCEP, but only that little bit what has happened is the friction between Australia and China about the coal deliveries. But we would request the governments of both the countries to come out with an FTA as ASAP. And Dr. Srivastava, what he was telling on a short-term, mid-term and long-term policies, I have also worked on the same lines, that what should be our policies without repeating what other learned speakers have said. In the short term, India has immediately taken up steps to improve the FDI into insurance and elimination of retrospective tax provisions and launching of the single window system for facilitating investment, and also in the defense sector. Then we request that there should be a waiver of duty as Mr. Gandhi was telling, waiver of duty at the rate of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminium under Section 232 of the tariffs imposed in 2018. The scheme of GSP should be immediately revived. What I request is that I would request our national president and the embassy to take up that if IACC could be a part of the Indo-US Trade Policy Forum, and which has done a lot of good work during the minister's visit in November this year. In the short term, I request that there are a lot of agricultural technology companies when we talk of IT and ITES, particularly the precision farming, which is prevailing in the United States, to bring that technology into India, and 100% FDI is permitted into the technology part as well as into the food processing part of it. In the medium term, we would like to focus on that non-tariff barriers may be removed in the face of it. The two sides should sit and list out the various NBTs in the form of sanitary and psychosanitary standards, technical barriers, economic needs, tests, and complex registration requirements that business may face. In fact, this was discussed with the two ministers also in previous month. The Quad, which our Prime Minister has signed between the three nations, that should be a landmark agreement which should be taken forward as far as the healthcare and other industries are concerned, IT and startups. We request that in the cyberspace, with the government, Indian government should expedite the formation of the laws, as Mr. Singhi was also telling, that on the GDPR part of it, because if the MNCs from various countries, they come to India, or even from USA or Europe, they would certainly like to transact with other countries, and our country is very slow in implementation of the GDPR laws. The COP26 has given us a big boost in the sense that both USA has certainly come out of it, that Paris Accord, which had the previous president had come out of this, and the new president has taken lead into this process. And very important thing, what our learned speaker, Mr. Chaudhary was telling about solar thing, only on November this year, USA has been 101st signatory to the Global Solar Alliance. That is a very good news. And as Mr. Singhi was telling about the alternate dispute resolution, we now have the advantage under the new law. Our law is based also on the New York Convention, and it is based on the UN Citral Guidelines. And the Schedule 4, which was a restriction for their advocates and attorneys to practice in India, that has been opened. Regarding mediation also as an alternative dispute resolution process, India is a signatory to the Singapore Convention, and our mediation bill is likely to be passed in this winter session. We would request both the governments to relaunch the workshop focused on accelerating implementation of the WTO Trade Facilities Agreement. These are the legal things which are in the short term should be sorted out. In the long term, we want that the RCEP and India is out of the RCEP and the US is out of the TPP. So we request that the FTA should be taken and concluded as early as possible.
So can we hold the discussion down because we are running out of time really.
Okay, 1 minute. I'll take only 1 minute more. I
no
want
problem,
to only
no
react to what other
sure.
speakers have said.
Sure,
and I have noted down all these points.
Sure.
And Pravesh ji has said about the leather industry. In fact, that is very much dominating in our state of West Bengal. And we should also take it to the United States because a lot of SMEs are eager to buy our products there. And if possible, there could be an investment coming into from USA to India. And what Mr. Singhi and Alan were saying that there is a problem with the double taxation treaty, but Alan has given the solution very smartly that a lot of investment which is coming from via Mauritius is US based because of the double taxation.
Thank you, Mr. Kalra. Thank you, Mr. Kalra. You know, you're so interesting speaker. One of these days, we're going to have a longer one with you on the floor, on the virtual floor. May I invite Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta to come to the floor and give his deliberation? Mr. Dasgupta, he's running out of time, so I'll hold down his introduction. He was a senior partner in, he's right now a senior partner in Tuiri Consulting LLP, ex-senior partner and national leader of consulting of KPMG, ex-partner and national leader of consulting practice PwC, member of the State Public Policy and Strategic Policy Board of Government of West Bengal. Mr. Dasgupta, floor is yours. And of course, again, 12 to 15 minutes max.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. I must thank IACC for having me here in this seminar, which was titled more as the impact of the present geopolitical equations after the pandemic on the India-US relationship. And thanks for having me to make some concluding remarks on this. But I really wonder if there can be any conclusive remark on a subject like this, a relationship which will continue to continuously change its shape, contour, dimensions, nature of dependence on each other, expectations from each other, uncontrollable factors of an evolving international relationship scenario, and added to that, of course, the present chaos induced by the pandemic. But of course, we all feel that within such flux, definitely such a powerful ally will have to stay on course and make at least some of the basic functions and premises not to change. Can't keep shifting their positions, react at every differences of opinions, because certain stability at the macro level, and if we come to our own subject like trade, to a large extent, as far as trade goes, a micro level stability is very essential to make the bipartisan trade to flourish. Now, undoubtedly, the alliance between these two large pluralistic democracy, at least what we both claim as, in few pillars like economics, defense and security, people-to-people ties, global cooperation, and our collective democracy assistance for the whole world, shared values, is a subject that can shape up not just the fate of these two countries, but can impact many other countries in the world and maybe the world as a whole. Whether these allies for the economic boosting up of these two countries, US and India, by such huge amount of trading, which is now being done, and that will be done even more in future. We heard the numbers. Or for India to be leveraged as a counterbalance in the Indo-Pacific politics, or to impair any Chinese incursion in the South Sea, or for the world's democracy survival, or for forging a newer equation to weaken anyone else in the world, all these can be debated and discussed. Maybe some of the causes will also go away over the time. They will not exist. But what will definitely exist is the importance of this alliance in the entire world, for the whole world. But this scenario also can change. Individual leaders' own expectations and ego, the country's expectations from each other, their own perception about what a democracy is on which this alliance is premised, the conflict between what India feels as the sovereign rights of the countries and non-interference as against their democratic assistance in every state, in every country, which possibly there could be an expectation from India. India's own views on the security alliance, security neutrality, the democratic resilience in the Indo-Pacific, India's own views, US and India's their own respective views on how to manage their own country, democracy within their country, the secularism, all these differences may occasionally come up and can create a cleavage occasionally. But the trade has to survive even in that changing situation. That's where the challenge for the trade lies. The question, therefore, is how can we protect trade against such vulnerabilities? Trade needs long-term planning, investments, resilience, skill building, managing the shareholders, they are buying in, and therefore any vacillation on any such premises can really cause disaster to the trade. We both have a very thriving private sector and companies, thriving MSMEs, and therefore we need to really figure out how more business-to-business discussions can be done and setting up of trade-related policies and rules that to a large extent can be protected from any other changing situations and scenarios. Predictability, we have seen, is the key factor in business, and we need to give predictability there and reduce uncontrollable risk factors arising from political, ideological, policy, or any kind of governance style differences. Even I heard, which was a good point, state-to-state engagement, apart from the business engagement, more beyond the country to country in a federal structure, is also a very important thing that one really needs to pursue to mitigate any kind of risk coming and hitting the trade balances. Now we have our bilateral agreements. We are in course of completion of many of the FTAs and bilateral agreements, but there are many multilateral things which are also coming up. There could be clauses, there could be counter clauses. India may like AUKUS, may not like AUKUS. We are having Quad. There could be disputes coming in Quad also. Then there are G7+3, D10, T12, all kinds of multilateral combinations are coming up. We had RCEP, we had CPTPP. But what happens if something goes wrong in these multilateral agreements? There could always be differences in these multilateral agreements. But even if those agreements sometimes do not act or do not work, or there could be a little bit of a lack of cohesion there, the trade scenario has to be agreed upon based upon what because the privates have by then already started operating according to the trade policies already in place or in expectation. My last point is we should also start thinking of going beyond just the bipartisan trade between India and the US, just we importing or we exporting from US or exporting to US or importing from US. While we are trying hard to really, for the Indo-Pacific stability in terms of security, politics and all that, the supply chain resilience in the Indo-Pacific is also pretty fragile and brittle. We have been recently talking to a Sri Lankan company who said that their entire organization is now coming to a closure, their company, because their entire raw material sourcing, which was from China and few countries, after the pandemic and during the pandemic has come to a complete closure because of a huge supply chain disturbances. Now, this is not just one single scenario. We have come across multiple scenarios in the ASEAN countries and in the Indo-Pacific various countries about a very brittle, fragile supply chain and more after this pandemic situation. Now, beyond just trading between us, between India and US, I think we should also collectively think that how can we repair, how can we really strongly repair the damage in this Indo-Pacific, apart from the security and the political stability, into the supply chain stability, where we are actually not trading between us, but India and in US combining, jointly investing money in really utilizing or using or leveraging the fragility of the supply chain for their mutual interests in the Indo-Pacific. Now, therefore, my final conclusion is that we all have to manage our own country. We'll all have to manage our own country by our own values and principles that we preach to the world in terms of the democratic, in terms of the various other ethics, secular principles. But the way and the style by which we manage, there could be sometimes certain differences coming up. There could be broad expectations on external matters also. There could also be some differences coming up occasionally. But our reactions have to be very understanding on each other's position as far as the trade goes, because trade just cannot be impaired immediately because of any such political, social, philosophical differences coming up. And there also I request ISCC to play a big role, that how they can build a firewall against the trade. And even if the trade is being impacted by certain differences, we have to be preemptive in that. We have to have proper red flagging mechanism, alerting mechanism, so that the business can get their time to really react and respond to such changes coming in. And we had this trade policy forum, we had the CEO 10, CEO 100, CEO 20, these kinds of various forums. Now, how do we really make them and the political policymakers come together and see that how a proper firewalling and protection of the trade can be done? That is something which I will request everyone to think about, and particularly ISCC can definitely play a very big role in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta. You have laid out a thought process which is really exciting. And, one should know this because you're absolutely right. A trade cannot be impacted by factors which can derail or obfuscate these issues, political tension, financial tension, anything, or trade clauses. So we really need to work on this and protect the trade rail line, so to say, not being derailed. I think Indo-American Chamber of Commerce needs to take this up as one of the agenda. I don't know where Mr. Kaul is there, but I'm sure he's listening, and I'm sure.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So this is an area I think Ambarish Dasgupta has laid out a very important point. It's a huge point, but nevertheless, I don't think there's any other chamber than Indo-American Chamber who can work on this. Now, there's number one. Number 2 points that he has mentioned, and it's another very important point, that it's just not the bilateral trade between these two. We need to look at factors beyond, because those will impact the trade also. So as a chamber, as a representative of the government, Mr. Lawrence, as Eileen being part of the US administration, I think all of you need to look at this factor that we focus on the bilateral trade, but also we focus on factors which can impact the bilateral trade, and we can use it to enhance our favorability of those factors. Mr. Dasgupta, thank you so much for giving this thought. It's been wonderful having you on the panel. Now, we're going to conclude this wonderful session. I would request Regional Vice President, Mr. Sujay Biswas, to express his vote of thanks. Mr. Biswas is a very articulate Vice President, part of the leadership team of IACC, a very ebullient gentleman. So kindly step forward and provide the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. It was nice listening to you. Excellent moderation. First, thanks to you for such an excellent moderation and keeping every speaker on time. It's very difficult. You know that when you speak on a topic, on a webinar, or trending change of equation in the global economy, reflecting on the Indo-US business, and you confine people like all the speakers, and Ambarish also. Ambarish is very close to me, Dr. Ambarish Dasgupta, and every one of them, Mr. Kalrai, cut him short. He had to, because otherwise this time is going away.
No, I'm sorry.
So I'll start with.
I'd like to apologize to anyone who felt bad about it.
I would put my claps for you, because otherwise it goes haywire and everyone loses his or her interest. So first, I would like to thanking my president, Anup Acharya, whom I'm almost on a regular touch. He's such a proactive person. I liked his proactiveness also for organizing this webinar. Second, I'm not going in line, Mr. Kapil Kaul. He has been a motivator who had motivated me to work with Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, and the number of things that are happening, I come to know from him on a detailed level, and he has put such a pace to the Indo-American Chamber, being a president of the national body, and we seek all his help and guidance so that to make IACC, Kolkata chapter, or IACC, EIC more functioning, more vibrant, and more reachable, and make an impact, as all the speakers said. Definitely thanks to Ms. Eileen Nandi, the Minister Council of Foreign Affairs, US FCS, American Embassy in New Delhi. It was grateful. It was an honor that she could make out time for us. Mr. Stephen Lawrence, the Director, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Then Mr. Ganesh Chaudhary. He's an iconic man too, Vice Chairman and MD of Vikram Solar, the biggest solar power plant, and with the green energy coming on, the solar power is so important. Mr. Shamar Jha, the chairman, Webel. I had worked with Webel I used to work for a company in Baltimore, and I was in touch with the Webel authorities for a very long time. And I know how Webel works. So I had to intervene when Mr. Mukherjee, when he was saying that with Webel, ISCC can hold hands strongly and we can make a difference with them. Mr. Milesh Gandhi, Vice President Marketing Sales, Ramakrishna Forgings Limited. Mr. S.K. Singh, founder and chairman partner, S.K. Singh and Company. Mr. Parvez Ahmed, CEO and founder, Labai Group. Mr. S.K. Kalra Sahib is full of information, full of energy, and full of input. So, Mr. Kalra, Mr. D.K. Srivastava, Chief Policy Advisor, Ernst & Young India. And last but not the least, Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta. Ambarish had been a happening person right throughout the time I got sense in corporates and till date. I would also like to thank our sponsors, which includes the GIS Group, Mr. the RPG Group, the Ramakrishna Forgings, Labaik International, S.K. Singh and Company LLP, and definitely another thanks to Mr. Kapil Kaul, President and ISCC membership, for instant support, and all the ISCC members for supporting us in our journey of taking ISCC to the next level, to the next leg. And I keep on saying to the top, and the top, and we'll reach at the top with all your helps, prayers, and blessings. Thank you.
Mr. Biswas, can I come in for a minute?
Yes.
I would also like to thank Madhushree Dayatri,
Yes.
Trupti Power, Sagar, who have been behind the scene, and without them, we couldn't have gone forward. Thank you so much, Trupti, Sagar, and Madhushree. You guys have been spectacular, because it's like when the Roger Federer serves, there are people behind who has enabled him to do it, and that's what you are. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Mr. Mukherjee, for missing out those names, and I would have really loved to repeat them, but the listing that I did and received didn't have carried their names.
But thank you for a wonderful. But it's a wonderful vote of thanks.
One thing, just I would like that you have said, and all the people have said, Mr. Kapil Kaul said, and my president has said, that what is required is making sounds that we can make a difference and reach out to people, so that people comes to us. It's not we go for collecting membership, but members comes to us to be a member in the American Chamber of do functions, do webinars. And I think if by January and February this pandemic changes to an endemic, then we should have more physical programs, so that people can come and find out that what are the things happening, who are the people associated with us, so that at least to make a network, they will come to the chamber and we'll get new members. I think that can create magic. And our president of the national body is from Calcutta, so I think that we can get all the help of the HO for
Definitely.
that.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
So we'll conclude this meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, President. Thank you, Regional President. So we'll leave at this stage. Thank you
for doing a brilliant job. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I've ruffled some feathers, but my apologies.
No, it was brilliant. Mr. Mukherjee, it was brilliant. The past president.
That is, the past president is the only permanent title in the entire. Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.